Hi everyone, welcome to our Treasure Home Monday Night Live. So let me type in here. Hi to TV watchers. Whoops, it just disappeared. TV watchers. Hi chat. And excuse me, hi replay watchers. Alrighty. So we have an interesting subject for tonight. And y'all will see me I'll put up my sleeve up and down because my arm gets cold, and then right here starts to edge, so that I'll pull my arm up and everything. So hi TV watchers, hi everybody in the chat, hi those who watch the replay. So I am planning on this to be probably at least a 2-part series, depending how much I get in here tonight, with at least a 2-part series. It's always an interesting subject about investigations and what is private, what is not private, and everything. And I will be talking about my experiences as a private investigator. So, probably ever since I was a kid, I always liked police shows, detective shows, you name it. I always could figure it out and everything. So anything in our neighborhood was going on or that would happen, everybody would come to me and go, Nancy, what is this? And it's all about when it comes to stuff like that, right? When we think of the show Murder She Wrote and how there's little clues here and there, nuances that nobody ever thinks of looking at or anything, and it's just all in the details. And in one of the programs, well, she helped write that show. So in one of them, it says, it's just as important as the information that is there as the information is not there. So sometimes it's the information that's missing that you need to find. Um, I remember one night, um, you know, well, we didn't live in a bad area, but there was things that people did and everything, and police chasing people, and the guy, he jumped out of the car and the car ran into the tree. So here's our house, here's our street, here's the main street that came into our house, and here's the main street they were on. So it was this house right here. But we could see it through my mom's bedroom window. And all of a sudden they're pulling stuff out of the car. They're searching the car. The guy had got out and ran, and I believe they caught him later. Well, that was right around, or maybe right before Neighborhood Watch started. Somewhere around around there. And so they go, come here. So we had the binoculars, and I looked, and I was like, it was a bag of white stuff. We knew then what it was. And then why he was running from the police. So, it was like little things like that. And I was always, every time I saw a police officer or like crime shows or books and everything, I was always looking at those, reading those, asking questions and everything. So as I got older in my teen years and everything, we knew a lot of police officers in the area, in the county and the city and everything. So I was about 16, 17 years old. Maybe a little bit older than that. Somewhere between, it's my I would say senior year of high school. So 17, 18 on that age. And happened to pull up on one of the gas stations, me and a couple friends, and they were doing, hey, Sue. And they've been starting these like sting operations about making sure, different stores, gas stations wasn't selling to cigarettes and alcohol to underage kids and everything. So, I kind of looked a little bit older than I did, than 17, but they were like, so we got out of the car and they parked around the side, and one of them yelled my name, and I'm like, what? Like, come here. Because, like I said, my mom worked at the grocery store, so we knew a lot of people. And like, can y'all do us a favor? I'm like, okay, what? And so they explained what they wanted us to do and everything. I said, oh, sure, we'll have fun. And the guy, he didn't even catch on, I don't think, or anything. But we walked in and, got a soda and everything, and asked to buy cigarettes. When he asked for ID and everything, he was really on the up and up about it. So he didn't sell us anything. So I was I was glad that he didn't. But there were several times, so they always ask, when you gonna join? Are you gonna join? And everything. And I had always planned on joining, but it just never happened. Several times I went out for the police department and the state, and I would either miss it by a couple points on the questions or one of the physical things and everything. I was so close once, and the guy it was doing setups, and he was like, come on, you can do it. Come on, if you just pass this, you don't have to do the other thing. I'm like, I'm trying. He almost just pulled me up, but everybody was watching, so he couldn't help. But I was just like, oh man. So, that was always something I felt the Lord put in me, whether it be, fire, EMS, police, and everything, the stuff I always wanted to do. And because so many things happened growing up. My mom drove a bus for a Christian school, the Christian school we went to. So every October 31st, it was egged, it was toilet papered, something or another. So I always like, when I get older, I'm going to find out who's doing this and everything. So, I was that way. One time we were sitting there, and this is before my parents had built on to their house. One night, just sitting there watching TV, and we had one of those old doors. Well, I won't say old doors, but the doors, the front door had a window here, the 3 windows. So, say there was a window here, one in the middle, and one right here. And I really never liked that door because I always thought somebody could look through those windows, which we would have known because they had a screen door, it would open up. But later on in years, my parents did change that door till the windows were up at the top. So we definitely would know if somebody was looking in, because they would have to stand on something to get to those windows. But one night we're sitting there watching TV. It's a Saturday night. Someone just comes up, and man, they just are pounding on the door. And before by the time my dad could get up off the floor and get to the door and open the door, they're at the corner. So here's our street and this street. They're at the corner, just laughing and calling our last name and everything, and saying, you'll never find who it is. And I'm just like, one day I'll find you. And I was like 6, 7 years old. So it was stuff like that really kind of like drove me to want to be, in the detective field and everything. We did find out years later. So that happened, and I was probably about 10, 11 years later. We always had people come by and visit from school, church, people she knew at the store and everything. Happened to be one of the guys had graduated. This is yours, because they were my age of my sisters. And he came over, he goes, I got a confession. And I go, what's that? And he goes, I was the one that banged on your door that night and everything. And they were like, really? They had a feeling who it was, but you couldn't prove it. And they go, well, why did you do it? He goes, because y'all were the only people at church we knew that we could come do practical jokes on and we wouldn't get in trouble. It was like that all the time growing up. But, it's that mystery. Who did it? Can you figure it out? Are the clues there? And everything. So, that has been something all my life. So when I went through my divorce, I couldn't pass the police test, so I became a security officer. And even then, doing that different jobs and everything, it was all in the details, paying attention to, whose cars are there, what cars aren't supposed to be there, and everything. And one place, there was a warehouse that I was at, and somebody's car got broken into. And I had just finished walking the parking lot and went in the building. And I'm like, I didn't see anything strange or anything, but sometimes you get that feeling something's there or whatever. And so as soon as I walked in the building, the car alarm went off. So I jetted back outside. Now I saw someone running, but and the cameras back then weren't really that well. But if asking the right questions, it was more of a domestic thing because the girl was going through a divorce. So we kind of all put that together and everything. So, and then I moved to different states and everything. When I came back to Virginia, I was like, I've done everything. I told my mom, every job you wanted me to go try, I've done that. I'm doing what I know, what the Lord has put in my heart and everything. And then went back into security. And then I got my EMS, and then I went and got my private investigation license. So for a long time, PIs didn't have to have being licensed to the state. Now I was in the state of Virginia. So I think it changed. I think the guy told me it changed in the 90s or something other like that and everything. But people got grandfathered in and all this other stuff. But I passed. It was the funny thing. I was that the PI? It was either PI or the other class. It was the other class. But there were several of us in there. And they already knew me because it was the same place I went and got my security stuff and everything. So they knew I was going to pass. And they were just like, well, you have a knack for it and everything. I'm like, well, yeah, if you only knew what we did as kids. My best friend and I did play chips. We did play Dukes or Hazards. So, you name it. We were superheroes and everything. And we just loved, look at the details. Look what's not there. Is there something missing that should be there? So, and then, I worked for several companies. I owned my own company and everything. So, when we started looking at stuff and everything, this one company I worked for, when I started working for him, he gave me this file and told me what the case was and everything. And the cases were like either for disability, workers' comp, and divorces, or most of the main things. Once in a while, it might be, someone skip bond or something, another like that. Those are a little more tricky to find. But when it comes to if it was, like stuff like workers' comp, so I'm gonna tell you now, you have workers' comp, most likely the company is going to have an investigator following you to see if your injuries are what your injuries are. Divorce, that's a given when it comes to any kind of investigations or whatever, because each side is going to have their own somebody following somebody, and that's just a given. I'll let you know how to figure out if you're being followed. And then, Disability cases are the same way. So, and so he gives me this case, and he goes, I've had 3 men on it and everything, and they can't get anything, information. I said, I'll have it for you in a week. And he looked at me and he goes, huh? He's, I've never met anybody that confident before. I said, that's all right. I have my little secrets. So a week came by. A week went by. I said, give me a week. A week came by. In 3 days, between 2 and 3 days, that's within 72 hours, I had all the information he ever needed. He looked at me. He goes, I'm not even going to. He goes, I was going to ask you how you did it. He goes, I'm not even going to ask. He goes, I don't even want to know. I said, there's nothing illegal. I said, nothing illegal at all. It's all how you know what to do, how to do it, the questions to ask. So every time I could do surveillance, I would blame me. This helps a whole lot. During surveillance, call the local police department, non-emergency, tell them who you are, your name, what you're doing, your license number, the vehicle you're in, the vehicle's number, you're in the license number and everything. So if they get a call saying there's a suspicious vehicle in the area, they'll know how to answer that call. So I was on one case, and I did that. A lot of times I would just go into, when I first started, I would go in to the local police department and talk to whoever was in charge of, or be at the desk. But sometimes they always change to different people. But talk to the officer, no, chief or whatever, who I need to talk to, and tell them, introduce myself so they know who I am and everything, what vehicle I had, and also is always on file. So one particular time, I'm sitting there and I call in, I tell them who I am, and I got, oh my goodness, I had 2 police officers coming around just like they were trolling the area. I'm just like, y'all, I called dispatch and I told them, will you please tell them to leave? They're going to blow my cover. I'm like, if they were interested, they should have already been doing this. And it was a disability case and everything. She was claiming stuff, and she was lifting stuff. I'm not talking about little lifting stuff. I'm talking about these big water jug bottles that you pick up and put over onto the water fountain thing. And hey, Scott, thank you. And it was stuff like that. And I'm just like, if you're that hurt, I can't do that. Even when, before I was hurt, it would always take me and somebody else to lift those jugs. We have one. My son lifts it up. I mean, he lifts it up like it's nothing, My daughter-in-law went to lift it up. I said, don't ask me to help because I ain't doing it. She rolled it. So I was just like, that's a no-go for me. So, if you're looking at doing that job, that's one suggestion I would say, talk to your local police, let them know you're going to be in the area, what you're doing. Now there was another one that, the one I did not like. I worked for her and she was really nice and everything. But one of the cases we had, she goes, if he goes into the bar, you got to follow. I'm like, no, I can't. She goes, well, I said, because you just don't understand. She goes, well, if it gets your morals, I said, it has nothing to do with my morals. I'm being a Christian or anything else. I said, you just don't understand. If I go in there, if he goes in there and I go in there, I will have someone come up and talk to me and try to pick me up and everything. And I'm sitting there trying to watch. So it's like, oh my goodness. Sure enough, he goes to a bar. And I'm like, you are kidding me. I'm on the phone with her. She goes, just go in. I said, all right, but if he leaves and I can't leave to follow, you just got to pick up the lead or wherever he's going and everything. She goes, all right. Well, she was with her grandson. And so, sure enough, I go in. I don't sit at the bar. I just sit at a table and everything. Got me some water and everything. And the guy comes over and sits at my table and starts talking to me. And I'm just like, you're kidding me. I thought to myself, you are kidding me. This is not going to be good. And oh boy, he tried his best. And I'm just like, okay, Lord, this is a situation that, you give me the words to say because I don't know what to say. He wants to go on a date and this, that, and the other. I kind of played along to a point and everything. And then I was like, well, I guess my friend's not coming. I'm going to have to go. I made something up. But I was like, but then we got the evidence that we needed. Him asking me, you know, because he was cheating on his wife. So it was like, oh my goodness, it was weird. Um, I can say every case I had, I solved. No matter what it was, whether I did get the information or I didn't get the information, I solved the case. I closed every single one. I did. Um, then there was another one that was workers' comp and everything, and I thought I had missed her coming home, whatever, and there all of a sudden there she was and everything. I mean, she was carrying like it had handles, but they were like the 20, 30-gallon ones and everything, one in each hand, and she's just having a good old time and everything. And I'm just like, okie dokie. Now I did end up going to court a couple of times as a witness, and so I think it was the 3 times that ended up going and everything, and I'm with the so she would be the defense. I won't say prosecutor because it wasn't really prosecutor or attorney. It was just the attorney for disability or whatever. I'm sitting there with. He goes, just sit right here. He goes, you won't even have to testify. I'm like, okay. So they got to know me very well also. Most of the courts, every time I walked in for a case and I just sat down and the person never even knew me or nothing, they never knew who I was or anything. It was just that the attorney would say, well, we've got this evidence and everything, and the investigator found this, and this is the pictures that we have and everything. And, they would either settle or drop it or whatever. And it's like every time the county that I was in, every time I walked in the courtroom, the judge would sit there and he just shake his head and he put his head down. He goes, oh. So the prosecutor, he leaned over to me. He goes, I think they know they lost. So I was like, oh, really? I'm like, okay. So one of the things that people do as they cover and everything, yes, they change clothes. I had change of clothes. I had a baseball hat. I didn't change my glasses, but I put my hair up, I put my hair down, and wear a different way. Never got a wig. I knew investigators, women that had different color hair wigs. I never did that. But I always had a change of clothes. So if you see somebody, following you, now most of the summertime people's got sunglasses on. Most people wear a hat and everything. But you can kind of like get the inkling that Man, something's not right, especially in the wintertime. Now, and with the sun going down the way it is, and some people still wear sunglasses and all, but it depends on the hat in the wintertime. Now, a lot of men wear baseball caps. That's a given. But you want to either have a winter hat, a beanie, or something on. Um, but if you happen to notice that someone's following you, and you kind of like keep looking at them or in the rearview mirror, and then all of a sudden the hat changes, see, that's kind of an indication that something's going on. Um, so if you're in your vehicle and you think that you might be being followed, now this was I was taught this as a teenager from a police officer who came to our school. He goes, make 3 right turns. So you being followed, and you coming from the grocery store or whatever, and you think you're being followed, make 3 right turns. The last turn you're gonna make is a left-hand turn. Now, if they make the 3 right-hand turns with you, there's a 50-50 chance you're being followed. Sometimes it might be someone going the same way. Sometimes it's not. Now, whether and that's just a rule of thumb, whether you're not even in a divorce case or anything like that. That's just a rule of thumb. If you think you're being followed because of things going on nowadays, people being abducted and everything, make 3 right turns. If they don't follow you on the left turn, still don't go straight home. Go to the nearest store. Don't go back to the store that you were at, or go to the gas station or close gas station, whatever, and sit there for 5 minutes. In that 5 minutes, I'm telling you, you will know if you see that car come up and all of a sudden it's in the gas station that you're in and everything, you're being followed. Then you get on the phone with 911, tell them where you're at and what's going on. Tell them what you did, where you went, and what the turns you did and everything. You came and sat at this door. Now the car's there where you're at. And they will have you sit there and wait for an officer to show up. So I'm quite sure, some people don't have panic in their voice. Some people do panic and everything. So they'll talk with you. You can ask them to stay on the phone with you until the police officer gets there. Now, especially like if they say stuff on your car, and then I grew up. People, that's how they advertise, was putting flyers on people's windshields, underneath the windshield wiper and everything. Nowadays, don't touch it. Don't even touch it. Don't even reach for it. Especially if it's money or whatever, it could have stuff on it and everything. They have different ways to put stuff on paper and everything. And as soon as you touch it, you'll pass out. So the best thing with that is, again, when you leave, let it be there. Go to the police station or go to a fire station and get out, ring that doorbell and tell them, hey, when I left the store, this is what's on my car. I don't want to touch it. They will get their gloves. They'll get it off for you. And sometimes, there's a police officer there hanging around, or they'll have an officer come and everything. But always telling you, fire stations are a safe place. If you feel like you're being followed and everything, where a fire station's at, pull up in there. Most likely they'll think, oh, you're going to go visit somebody because you're going to a fire station. Most likely you know somebody, or you might be going to ask a question or whatever. And then, ring the doorbell. When they open up and just say, I'm being followed, and they'll get you inside real quick. And that's some other things. So just some tips on that. When you think you're being followed and everything. So when it comes to, the the thumbnail. And I could not pick which one I wanted to put. I had several, but I cut them because, like I said, I'll probably do this in a series. And even try to say put a woman in the car, but it wouldn't do it. So you got the person's got this file and everything, and you wonder how they get your information. All right. So if you're going through a divorce or it's workers' comp, disability, some other kind of case, now it used to be collection agencies used to do it, but they don't really do it that much anymore that I'm aware of. But so they've got, so any kind of legal case, they're going to have information. So we'll start with workers' comp because that's a lot of things happen. So through your job and everything, they're going to have your information, where you live and everything, because that's where you work at. So that's how the investigator gets his information. Now, my suggestion, if you're going through workers' comp or something other, just be honest. There are injuries that are inside our bodies that the people can't see. I have degenerative disc disease. I have arthritis in both hips. Well, you could tell by the way I walk, something's not right. But, degenerative disc disease, you can't see that inside a person's body. You couldn't, carpal tunnel, unless the person's hands are like arthritis, you can see. People who have cancer or some other, COPD, there's things internal that you can't see. So I always, if I got cases that had like internal injuries, back injuries, spinal injuries and everything, I did get some time because one day you can have a good day and the next day you cannot have a good day. So I always told them, give me a week, give it a couple of days. I knew from experience because if I sat in my van too long, I had a hard time getting up and getting out of my van. And I'm just like, what is going on? And I'm the one sitting there. So I understood. That's why I said most cases I did a week, because I know one day you can have a good day, the next day you can't. Because I also have fibromyalgia. That same muscle thing, that's, you can't see that. You don't know that because one minute I can pick this cup up really fine and everything, and then an hour or so later I go to pick it up and I'm like, my arm goes like that, and I'm like, what in the world? So, if you're going through like a disability case or a workers' comp case and everything, just always be aware that they gotta prove that you're not hurt, and you've got to prove that you are hurt. So, it's like which one comes out. So, and then always, make a journal. Make a journal how your day is one day, how your day is not the next day. And that's workers' comp, disability. Even through a divorce, I would always suggest make a journal, because, like I said, when I was going through mine, I had boys. Boys are boys, We went to Walmart one day, and I knew we were being followed. And they were my youngest one's in the cart, and the other one's on the back of it and everything. And we turned the corner, and the person's still there. So I was like, so we went down a few more aisles and start going down the aisles. Well, then the person was still there. And so finally, after like the fourth time or whatever, because we would go to different sections, I looked at that person, I think it was a guy, and I was like, If you're not loss prevention and you're following me before, and I named the names and everything, you can tell them to go jump in the lake. Nothing's going on, and you're not going to get any evidence on me because I already know how to do investigations. And that person just looked at me and was like, got so red in the face. And I was like, and you can leave the store, but if you follow me, I will call the police and get you for harassment. And it's like, because the person wasn't even a PI. So that's the difference between, I'll explain that in a little bit. The person wasn't really a PI. He was just following me for my ex. So I'm just like, okay, so we stayed in the store, but I did have loss prevention walk us out because safety reasons. So, those are those little things, especially in like if you're in Walmart or, one of those big box stores. And yeah, people all do grocery shop. And sometimes you'll walk into somebody that's the same aisle all the time. Once or twice, I can see that. When it's going to be 4, 5, 6, when it's constantly, that's when the red flags start going up and like, something's not right here. And then, you can go up to, a worker or whatever and tell them you need loss prevention or whatever they call it now. And that, do you think you're being followed in the store? If, it doesn't now necessarily have to be divorce or workers' comp or disability or anything like that. So, but here's the nitty gritty. I know everybody wants the nitty gritty. So, in investigations, so I get this blank, I get a file, and say it's a divorce case, and the person has nothing. Let me take that back because divorce, you will. I did do some missing person cases, and we had this one, and they were trying to serve papers to well, actually, it was like not child enforcement, but he was in back child support and everything. And nobody can find him. I'm like, just give it to me. Let me see what I can find. All right, so privacy. There are some things that, yes, you have privacy on. There are some things they're not privacy on, okay? So now the World Wide Web out there and everything, people can look and search and everything. Now, some of y'all who know my name, Google it. There's 100, some of them. Google your name and see how many come up and everything. So some of those sites still have the correct stuff. Some of it does not. Now, if it was like someone like child support and everything, one of the first things I would do is go to the courthouse. And several of our courthouses, you could go in and of course, it's computerized, look up that person's name. But the court clerks and everything all knew me too well also. And, but I'm going to tell you, if you've ever had a civil case, if you've had a traffic ticket, and a criminal case, whatever, all that's public knowledge. It's not hidden. It never has been hidden. It's always been public knowledge. And that's just the way that that it is. Some states, after so many years, they purge their systems and everything. Some states don't, and it just depends on what state you're in. So, like, even if you're in a car accident and you were suing the person who hit you and everything, that's a civil case. That's not public knowledge anymore. It's in the court system. A lot of court systems now are online. Um, and that's how a lot of people pay their tickets and fines for getting a speeding ticket. So if you had a speeding ticket, it's public knowledge. You can Google yourself, whatever state you're in or locality, look in the courts and everything. I can every state I've been in, I would put my name, and there's 50 different ones. I'm just like, you're kidding me. It's like, oh my goodness. So anything like that. So the first thing I would do, that I would, all right. So if it was such and such county was the last person that this person was in, okay. Well, I would go to that county. I would start off with that county, go to the court, and put their name in, or talk to the clerks and everything, give them the information that I had, and the last known address if I had that, and if they had a speeding ticket or whatever, it used to be like $1 or whatever, and you get a copy of it. It's just that simple. Um, you know, anything that hold on. My son moved wrong and his back popped. So that's what you're hearing. Oh, now he hit his head twice on the wall. So he'll be all right. So, if you have a speeding ticket, civil case, it's public knowledge. Now, like I said, it depends on the state you're in. Every so many years, they just purge their system, and it's so, especially if it's been 20 years or so, you can go check and everything and see if it's been, purged or whatever. Especially in the last 5 years, it's gonna be there. But that's what I would do. I would go to that county, um, put the name in, or have them help me look it up, and they can look it up and everything. And you would get, a speeding ticket and stuff like that. It'll have the address, the vehicle, the officer's name. That is somebody you could go talk to. And I did several times. I would get the officer's name, go, find out what shift he was on, when he was working. And then when he was on duty, I would call and ask if they could contact that officer and he could meet me at a certain place. Sometimes it was the police looking for the same person for another reason. They're like, well, we've been looking for such and such and such and such for her because of this, this, and this. I'm like, oh, so that's why he's really hiding and that from child support. So I'll tell you a story here in a little bit. So, but then, if there wasn't any information in that county, then I would go to the city. And, that's big. We had several different counties, and a lot of people are the same way. You may have or take Kansas City. You got Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri. But then it's all broken up into different counties and everything. So you could go to court A or that court B or whatever. And so I would go to a different one. And then I would kind of spread out further out of the city and everything just to see, because sometimes, people travel and, it's not always in the local area that they would have something, and just to see. And then if I find where the person was, that's when I would go to the local sheriffs or whatever and ask questions. Now, we're talking about So this one case I had, it was actually a case I had. I was looking for this person who had skipped bond, and I was like, so I called the police and with the county, and they were like, so the officer was looking for him, so we had gotten in contact and everything, and they was like, well, we're looking for him too, and it was for a criminal matter, and I was like, okay, this is hilarious. I said, when I find him, I'll let you know where he's at. And so I did. I found exactly where this person's at, where he was staying at, because we went to the house that was on file and everything. And the guy was so mad. He goes, I'm tired of people looking for him and everything else. And I was like, wait a minute, I know, showed him my badge and everything. And he goes, so yeah, because he's this, and this, and this. Oh, well, he's at this house on blah, 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 blah street. I was like, okay, that's cool. That's all I need to know. So I had to go verify that he was there. I didn't knock on the door. You did, and that neighborhood, the streets were pretty like much cars parked on the street anyway. So you blended in. And sure enough, I saw him walking there and everything. So the next night and everything, to make sure, I contacted the officer when he was going to be on duty. And he told me what night it was. And I was like, well, I found him and everything. He goes, oh, don't do anything. He goes, we want to do this so bad. I'm like, okay. So he goes, you go do what you need to do. And when you see him, you call us. I said, oh, well. So they hung around the area and sitting in the van, and I'm like, and I would think I recorded it, but I don't have that camera anymore. But anyway, so I'm sitting in the van and we're watching and everything. The guy comes home and everything. And this is in the wintertime, it's cold. So I call the officer, let him know that he's there and everything. Not one showed up, but four showed up. And two went around the back and two were at the front, and they knocked on the door. And when the girl answered, they said, we're looking for so and so. And, it was just like the show Cops. They went in and he went out the back door. And they go, he's going out the back door. That's how loud they were. They were, he's going out the back door. He's going out the back door. And they go, so they told him to freeze and everything. He wouldn't freeze, so they tased him. And I was like, oh, you're such an idiot. There's four of them and one of you. Just don't do anything. So, as they were all leaving, one of the officers, he didn't know who I was, to know why I was there. It's because the main guy didn't tell him. He came by and he asked me, and I politely told him who I was, showed him my ID and everything, and that I had contacted Officer so and so. He goes, oh, he mentioned a PI being around here, but we didn't know who it was. Because he goes, he didn't give us any details. He goes, we were just too much in a hurry. And so that's okay. He goes, but nice to meet you. He goes, now I know what you look like and what car you're in. He goes, we'll keep an eye out on you when you're in the area. I said, thank you. So, I got a nice rapport with all the officers in different counties and everything. So, when it comes to, like I said, when it comes to like cases like that, and most of the time, it, if you had like I said, anything in the court system, it's all public knowledge. Um, Here's one that people don't think of a lot: real estate. Now, if y'all know, I'm 56. So I know everybody, a lot of people remember this. A long time ago when we had newspapers, I know somebody was coming down the steps or not. Well, we had newspapers and everything. there was a nice place in the newspaper. I laughed a lot, just like I do now. I gotta tell you all a case here in a little bit. It was It was creepy, but it was weird, but it was creepy too. Yeah, I laughed a lot. I still like I always like this. So, um, Joy, I mean, real estate. Now, every time I say real estate, it makes me think of Lucy in the Charlie Brown Christmas. When she goes, she never gets what she wants for Christmas. He goes, what's that? She goes, real estate. So if you have bought a house, you sold a house. Back in the day, it was printed in the newspaper. It was not private. That was public information. Newspaper wasn't private. Everybody bought the newspaper. Now it's all digital. You figured. Um, so if you bought a house, you sold a house, bought land or whatever, it's all in the courts. It's a legal transaction. So if somebody had your old address and they were looking for you, they could just put that in. Or if they know somebody wants to find you, if they know where you are, you have your address, they just put it in. Now, living in a rental or something like that, that's totally different. They'll just get the name of the property. But when you buy a house, that is a legal transaction that is done through your whatever county you're in or whatever state you're in and everything. And all I gotta do is go on there, put your name in there, and it comes up. You could do it yourself. If you have a house, you pay county taxes or whatever taxes online. They've got that portal now. They have for the last 25 years or so. You can pay your taxes online if you don't want to go into the office and pay for it. I mean, oh my goodness, a business. If you own a business, you're entrepreneur, or you're have a LLC, a corporation, partners in the business and everything. That's all public knowledge because you have to register with the city and the state. Um, People can look you up that way. Let's see here. So real estate, if you own a business, went through the court system. Now, they used to be years ago, I don't remember the site, but it was only for investigators, and we would pay for it and everything. And you could put somebody's name in or social in, and it would just give it all kinds of information. Now you have different sites like Intellus and Spoke E or SPOKEO. Sometimes it's free, or they want to, you pay $1 for 7 days and you can find out anything. And that's a trap of getting you to pay $14.99 or whatever they charge a month, because you forget to cancel it in that 7 days, you're going to get charged. Now, there's a lot of misinformation out there on the internet about people. So it used to be, and I know when I was doing it back in 2003 and 4 and all, we had this piece of paper where you could fill out and get the person's change of address at the post office. They stopped that. And when I did it, they stopped it like in 2007, 2008 and everything, because they just told me it was a privacy issue or whatever. And I'm just like, I've been doing it. It was like license for, 8, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 5. I think been doing this for 5 years or so and everything. And then, but the state of Virginia had changed the law. So it used to be, now, my dad had a car accident back in 87, and it was always the same spot. He would have a car accident. And so I wasn't married yet, but I was probably like 18, 19 years old. And yeah, they want you to pay to look things up now. Exactly. Because you used to be able to go to the DMV and you had the person's name and license plate number. They would give you the information, but DMV stopped doing that. Oh my goodness, around the early 1990s. Well, in Virginia, they stopped. So if you didn't know somebody who worked there, you were just out of luck. You couldn't get any information. And it's, to me, in a way, that should still be that way, especially when it's DMV. Somebody should not be able to walk in and say, hey, I need this information because, some kind of excuse or whatever, or some reason or another, and they just give it to you. So I'm glad they stopped that. Now, sometimes, it depends. If someone's having a bad day, especially in the courts and everything, they may not that day. You may have to wait a couple days to go in and say, hey, I need this information. But, yeah, and if they're having a bad day, and just say, okay, thank you, and just walk away and everything. But yeah, and I could get everybody to laugh. It didn't matter. And they all knew me. I'm quite sure people who work there don't work there no more. They retired and everything. But, they knew when I walked in, they just start laughing. I'm like, what's so funny? They go, we know what you're here for. Like, you don't know. Right. So, doing investigations, what I liked when I was doing it and everything, I homeschooled my kids. My son I lived with, we kind of like did like 6 weeks on and took 3 weeks off or whatever. But by the time he was 14, I found where he could take his test online to pass high school, and he was done. He was at 14, a high school graduate, and he graduated college at 17 and a half. So, he helped me a lot. And with that was one of the best things, because him and I would play off of each other, especially if we had to be in the store and everything. People just thought it was just me and myself in the store together. So I had this one lady tell me, she goes, I would have never known you were an investigator. You look like a soccer mom. I was like, oh my gosh. It was hilarious. So both him and I had this case. And I'll never forget. We had my van. And so what I did, because I also had a cleaning business on the side. So I got the magnet that you could get at Staples. I think Home Depot still has them. And I put the name of my cleaning business and everything. And it was just the perfect cover, because somebody thought I'm at somebody's house cleaning. I'm actually doing this other job and everything. Well, that morning, we're sitting there, and it was a chilly morning. And I'll never forget, we're in the back of the van, and I'm waiting for the person to leave. But we see this person jogging. It was a lady jogging. And he kind of like, he was looking, he goes, Mom, something ain't right with this person. I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, their face is all distorted. I laugh now. We won't laugh and then. I'm like, okay, give me the camera. And so I took my video camera and she was far enough that they couldn't see me. But I'm just like, oh my word. I said, you've got to be kidding me. I said, you get in the floor. Because we were already kind of, you squashed down in the floor, enough that you could see, but nobody could see you. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, they're coming straight towards the van. Now, if you've watched movies and everything, action, adventure, spy movies and everything, and they have that mask on that looks like it's a clear mask, but it's a distorted face and everything, where you can't actually give a description of what the person looks like or whatever, but they can see everything. Think of people going to rob stores and stuff. That's what this person had on. And I will never forget it because to me, it was worse than Michael Myers' mask. And so we sit and we count it. We count like to 20 because it should have been 20 seconds from the time I saw her. She should have gotten to my van. And we kind of like, because we didn't even see her come up to it. And I'm like, because for her to come up, if she got close enough, I could have seen if the person was looking in. So we got up and it was gone. Whoever this person was gone. We didn't see them running down the road. We didn't see them running back up the hill. Nothing. This person disappeared. I'm like, I don't have time right now to go look and search or anything. We did make a notice of what clothes she had on, the color hair, everything else. And so when the client and everything I was doing left, I had to do my job. And I said, but we went back later on and we rode that neighborhood. I mean, we knew the neighborhood and we looked, we didn't see anything. Maybe they took the mask off and threw it away or whatever, in a ditch somewhere, everything. And I had a job one day to follow that person, but I went back the next day to sit there and see if I could find that person, maybe coming out of their house or whatever. Nothing. We don't know who this person was, where they came from, or where they went. And I was just like, okay, all I could think of was that the Lord had us there on that job my reason was for that job. But their main reason might have been somebody was actually going to do something worse. And that was a deterrent. So I've had experiences like that doing investigation work. But it's like, will we really think we think it's privacy? A lot of it is it's not. Especially like I say, when you think, okay, you buy a house, and you don't think about it being it's a legal document and everything you sign and transaction. The bank is privacy. The bank has to be privacy. That's that's a given. They can't give out information. They're not supposed to give out any information about you to any Joe, whoever, and everything. That bank is binding to privacy laws. But the real estate office that in your county, in your state, that shows a legal transaction because that's land, that's a house that's there, so that's how they get their taxes because it's not a private transaction that you don't purchase that house. Now, as far as I know, a lot of real estate county, in the real estate assessment's office or whatever, they're not supposed to have anything of your banking information there at all. And if they do, I would be going and asking questions why, because the bank doesn't give that out. I want you to watch my back. I don't want to be. Nowadays, I don't think they really do so much surveillance anymore like they used to. And the reason for that, they might. So, because I haven't done it in so long, it's been 20 years since I've done it. Because there's so much now is online with everything that they can find out. You go to the grocery store, you're on camera at the stoplight. Here's a little hint for you. The little blinky thing in the stoplight, it's not the sensor to change the light. Those are the lines that are in the road that you roll over. Those are the sensors that sit there will change the light. The little blinky thing in the light is a camera taking pictures every so often, because I know in the state of Virginia they try to do that so that the police officers wouldn't have to sit there at the lights anymore and catch somebody who ran the light, or stoplight, whatever. And they had a state officer, police officer, get a ticket through that, and he took it to court. And he goes, "That's unconstitutional." And he had it all out and everything written out, and it was on the news. So this is like 20 some years ago. But he had it on the news, and how can that camera, how can he? Because your Sixth Amendment right is to confront your accuser. He goes, "I can't confront my accuser. That's not constitutional." And he won that case and everything, and they had to drop it. I was like, we've had people run stoplights while we're live streaming. Yeah, I know. Hey, Missy. So, there are things that's like, people need to know. My suggestion, know your Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights. The first 10 amendments of the Constitution. People don't know that. They don't teach it in school. I taught my sons that. You better know. I mean, a lot of people talk about your first and your second and your third, but the other ones are just as important and all. So, know your amendments. And people know the Fifth Amendment. When there's more to the Fifth Amendment, just pleading the Fifth and not, saying stuff that incriminates yourself. So there's other things that go along with that. When it comes to other privacy things, I'll get more into that next week. Especially if you get pulled over and everything, and the police run your plates or whatever. What to say, what not to say, what to do, what not to do. You can always, like I said, go to the courthouse and just look things up for yourself. Your assessor's office, look at the real estate. Make sure there's no information there that you don't want people to see. If it's, like as my understanding and stuff I've looked at the county assessor's office, or where you pay your taxes, none of your information is supposed to be there except that house you have, the land you have, or whatever, and everything. So, sometimes there is still some privacy, but as far as like privacy. If you got a speeding ticket, if you had a civil case, and that could be like a medical bill. Um, if you had let's say a medical bill, a credit card, and they took you to court, or if you had a storage place and um, you just let go, and they, even though they auctioned it off for 5 times the amount that you were paying them a monthly for, and they made bukus of money off of it, they still want you to pay that fee. So things like that, that's all public knowledge. So, you know, some things are not as private as you think it is, but there are things that are private, have privacy laws on and all. So, but like I said, I'm gonna do this, and like maybe I know it's another part, 2 parts, maybe 3 parts, and everything. So next week I'll get more into if you get pulled over by the cops, what you say, what you don't say, um, if you're moving around and everything, what to do before they get to the car, or what not to do before they get to your car, and everything. Um, because sometimes they make mistakes too, but the best thing is to stay calm. So we'll get more into that next week and everything and all. And I think it's really interesting that, when I started doing it, I was like, oh, I didn't think people knew about the real estate. I thought that was, uh, thinking that's private information. It's really not. And then I got to thinking, back then, you know, I'll never forget. My parents or someone else take the newspaper. And we get the newspaper. Oh, let's see who bought a house today. I'm like, and then when my sister and her husband bought a house, I was like, oh, it'll be in the paper in a week or so, whatever. And sure enough, they'll list who's bought houses, what transactions, this, that, and the other. And there's reason for that. And we'll get into that. But, sure enough, their name, what house they bought, and everything else. Let's take it out. It's the most craziest thing ever back then. But it's all, it's illegal transactions. And most legal transactions like that are not private. And just, especially real estate. Um, so, so thank y'all for being here and enjoying the talk. I will continue this next week. Nose is getting kind of stuffy, so it's like draining and everything. And I was like, this is not. Today's been one of those days. It's been cold and then warm and everything. So thank y'all for being here. Y'all have a wonderful and safe night. Tune in next week. We'll have more juicy stuff. God bless. Stay safe. We love y'all. And we'll see you next time on Our Treasure Home.